Broadcasting live from somewhere in the Shadow Realm, this is YuGiOh Deck Talk. Here's your host, Doug Dimmaduel.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of YuGiOh Deck Talk. Today we're going to take a look at the Yosenju Kaiju build deck that can actually do pretty well at your local event, or even if you want to give it a shot at one of your upcoming regional events or something more competitive. I think this one could fare pretty well, given the strategy that comes along with the Yosenju type deck. So I'm going to touch upon a few of the main monsters, at least in the Yosenju Kaiju deck that I'm running right now. And of course you have to have the standards that come along with it. Yosenju, 1, which is a 4-star Beast Warrior monster with an attack of 1600 and a defense of 500. And its effect is, if this card is normal summon, you can, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon one Yosenju monster from your hand, except Yosenju, 1. If you control another Yosenju monster, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. This effect can only be used once while this card is face-up on the field. Once per turn, during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned this turn, return it to the hand. So that last piece is pretty crucial. Of course, that's the effect of most of these Yosenju monsters is that they will end up back in your hand at the end of the turn. So it's kind of one of those situations where it's, now you see me, you're going to end up flooding the field, and then now you don't, it's back in your hand. So any type of effects that possibly your opponent will be trying to do during his or her turn to remove some of your monsters, well, there's really not going to be any monsters to have on the field. And that could be a bad thing too in certain situations if it kind of leaves things open for you to take some damage. But that's why we have quite a few traps being run in this deck, and I'll touch upon a few of them in a bit. So anyway, moving back forward into the other Yosenju monsters, we have Yosenju, 2, and it is another level 4 Beast Warrior type monster, 1800 attack, 200 defense. If this card is normal summoned, you can, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon one Yosenju monster from your hand, except Yosenju, 2. This card can attack your opponent directly, but when it does so using this effect, the battle damage inflicted to your opponent is halved. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned this turn, return it to the hand. So this is the monster that will at least, even if your opponent has out a pretty powerful monster that you're going to have difficulty getting over, no need to worry. You could just go straight to their life points and attack directly using Yosenju, 2. So there's multiple strategies that you can end up using this card for, and quite frankly, the next monster is a good combo piece with Yosenju, 2, and that is Yosenju, 3. Now you see where we're going here. So with 3, if this card is normal summoned, you can immediately after this effect resolves normal summon one Yosenju monster from your hand, except Yosenju, 3. When another Yosenju monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can add one Yosenju card from your deck to your hand, except Yosenju, 3. You can only use this effect of Yosenju, 3 once per turn. Once per turn during the end phase, this card was normal summoned during the turn, return it to your hand. So what I'm trying to get at here is between 2 and 3, you'll always have this combo where you'll at least be able to search out whichever other monster, aside from another 3, that you could possibly want in your hand. So obviously the name of the game here is to try and get all three, all three onto the field and in your hand at one point or another, because with the 1 effect, it really plays against a lot of the effects that you currently see with a lot of the monsters, where a lot of their effects are saying that they cannot be destroyed by other monsters or destroyed by card effects. Well, with Yosenju, 1's effect, having it send a monster back to your opponent's hand, you're not destroying it. So, and one prime example of that is, say for the Fluffle Fright for builds, if you have Fright for Sabretooth, I love that card because it can't be destroyed by battle, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day if you have a Yosenju, 1 and you're sending that Sabretooth back to the owner's hand. So again, between the 3 of these, it is a fantastic set of combos, a set of things that you can end up doing. You could really end up filling your hand with more Yosenju monsters, and this could come into play later on, say if it's coming down to an end and your opponent only has so many life points left, say you're able to fill the field with, say you're able to fill the field with 4 or 5 Yosenjus by later on into your duel, you've already done all your damage. You hit your main phase 2, and if you'd like to Xe summon, feel free to then take advantage of I think the perfect example is Gaga Cowboy, the rank 4 Xyz monster that requires 2 level 4 monsters, and keep it in defense position so you can burn your opponent for 800 damage. Now, if you're able to do that twice within the same turn, having 2 Gaga Cowboys out there, boom, that's another 1600 of burn damage to your opponent, and that could be the difference between ending the game on a pretty fast note before your opponent even has another opportunity to counteract some of your strategy. So, I don't know, that's kind of the, one of the good finishing combo plays that you can end up doing with this deck. There is another Yosenju card here. It's Yosenju Sujik. It's a level 4 Beast Warrior, 1000 attack, 0 defense. During the end phase, if this card was normal summoned this turn, return it to the hand. You can only use each of these effects of Yosenju Sujik once per turn. The first effect is, during either player's damage step, when a Yosenju monster you control battles an opponent's monster, you can discard this card. That monster you control gains 1000 attack until the end of this turn. Its second effect, you can target one Yosenju monster on the field. It gains 1000 attack until the end of this turn. So, this is a really good combo piece if you have Yosenju Kama 2 out, or even Kama 1 out. The ones, especially Kama 2, because it has an 1800 attack already, at least comboing that with the Yosenju Sujik, it at least boosts its attack up to 2800. You can possibly get over quite a few formidable opponents that way, or even if you want to use this effect and then have Yosenju Kama 2 attack directly, you can definitely, instead of having only a 900 direct damage attack, you'd end up with a 1400 direct damage attack. So I don't know, there's a few ways that you could use Sujik. Currently in my build, I only run one of these. Now for each of the Yosenjus, 1, 2, and 3, of course I run 3 of each. That's a no-brainer right there. That's basically the whole driver of this whole deck. So in the meantime, I'll run a few other cards to really combat the fact that all these cards are going to be sitting in my hand at the end of each turn. So what you want to end up doing is having cards like, one example that I have in this deck right now is Torrential Tribute. If you're not familiar with that one, when a monster is summoned, destroy all monsters on the field. Well, you don't have any monsters on your side of the field usually if you have all your Yosenjus out there and they're back in your hand. So Torrential Tribute, it's really no loss for you since, since, like I said, you have no monsters out on the field on your end. So Torrential Tribute is awesome. It only has, I think it's limited to only 1, so I only run one of those in the deck. Another card that I use, especially to bide some time, is Lose One Turn. It is a continuous trap card. It says activate this card only if you currently control no special summoned monsters. While a monster is face up on the field, negate its effects during the turn that monster was special summoned. If an effect monster is special summoned in attack position, change it to defense position. So this really doesn't affect you in the sense, because when you are summoning all these Yosenju Kama monsters and you're putting out 3 or 4 on the same turn, they're not considered special summons because of their inherent effect, where each of them is actually normal summoned. So it's a pretty good thing to have there, and especially in a meta where there's so much so much reliance on all these special summons, Lose One Turn can really come into play. So another thing that I use as well is Dimensional Fissure, because it seems like there's a lot of opposing decks that end up relying heavily on their graveyard, and what that does is any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead. You could use Macro Necros as well. That's the same type of effect. That's a trap card. You also have, at least in this deck, I like to run at least 2 or 3 copies of Breakthrough Skill, since a lot of opposing monsters do have pretty good effects. Target one face-up effect monster your opponent controls. Negate the effect of that opponent's face-up monster until the end of this turn. During your turn, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one face-up effect monster your opponent controls. Negate that target's effect until the end of this turn. So it's a dual-use trap card. You can use it on 2 separate occasions, on 2 separate turns. It's an excellent trap card to have. So, and then of course, also run a pot of duality in here, since, like I was saying, with the lose one turn and, again, because of the lack of special summons that you have in here, pot of duality is an excellent card for these Yosenju decks. What you do is you excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, add one of them to your hand. Also, after that, shuffle the rest back into your deck. You can only activate 1 pot of duality per turn. You cannot special summon during the turn you activate this card. Again, it's no big deal on your end unless you were trying to Xe summon your cowboy, but other than that, pot of duality will always come into play pretty well in this type of deck. So an excellent piece to have in your deck as well. So the other card that I have here, and this is more Yosenju specific, is the Fire Formation Tenki. It's a continuous spell card, and its effect is when this card is activated, you can add 1 level 4 or lower Beast Warrior type monster from your deck to your hand. All Beast Warrior type monsters you control gain 100 attack. You can only activate 1 Fire Formation Tenki per turn. So this is your Searcher. It's a really good searching spell card as well. So between all of those spells and traps, they go really well with, again, with all these Yosenju monsters. And of course, I like to do a variant using Kaijus as well. So I like to try to have at least, 1 of each Kaiju in there. I'll run 2 Kaiju, interrupted Kaiju slumber cards as well to, again, just kind of wipe the board clean if your opponent is really filling up the field with a ton of monsters. So between using the Kaijus and as well as taking advantage of, say, for example, Yosenju Kama 1, if you first use one of your Kaiju monsters on your opponent, you tribute summon for Kaiju on your opponent's side of the field, then you activate Yosenju Kama 1's effect to return the monster to the hand, that Kaiju comes back to your hand. So you end up being able to recycle your Kaiju as long as you have 1 or 2 in your hand and you have a Yosenju Kama 1 and at least 1 other Yosenju monster, so you're able to use Kama 1's effect. It's a pretty effective tool to kind of get over a few of those more stubborn monsters that you're trying to find ways to get rid of. So that's why I think it's a really good blend between having Yosenjus and having these Kaiju in here. There's a few other cards that could go really well in there. I know there's a few variations, and this deck does have a few drawbacks. Of course, you leave yourself wide open to attacks in your opponent's turn if you don't have enough good counter trap cards or enough good magic or enough good spell cards in play. So yeah, there are some inherent drawbacks, but this deck does have a lot of upside too and could actually surprise pretty well in some more competitive environments. So I highly recommend trying this type of deck out, see what kind of build that you want to make, and let me know how much success you have doing it if you end up putting it together, if you have any improvements or if you have any cards that you prefer to run with this type of deck, or if you absolutely can't stand it. I don't know what the deal is. So just if you have any questions or if you have anything you want to add, reach out to me on Twitter at YuGiOh Deck Talk. It's all one word, at YuGiOh Deck Talk, and I'd be happy to address it in a future episode. And that's it for today. So I hope you enjoy this Yosenju Kaiju discussion, and we'll talk to you next time. Have a good one.
Join us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/YuGiOh Deck Talk. Tell us about the decks you want to see broken down and analyzed. Discuss strategy and new cards. Meet other duelists. It's all on the YuGiOh Deck Talk Facebook page. Like it today.